and Wellness. And I'm happy to serve as the MC for the first of our Lifestyle Medicine and Wellness series. These events are designed for community members such as yourselves to meet and chat with some of the amazing physicians we have at the Center for Integrative Health and Wellness and learn more about the importance of a healthy lifestyle. We look forward to sharing with you how a whole health approach can empower and equip individuals to take charge of their health and well-being and live their lives to the fullest. Before we begin, we'd like to ask all participants to mute themselves if not already muted. During our question and answer portion, you can either type your question directly into the chat as we go, and a member of our foundation team can share them during the Q&A portion with us, or you can raise your hand during the Q&A portion and we'll call on you to share your question. Most of you received your kombucha and swag bag today. If there's anyone that was not able to pick that up, we will certainly have them available for you tomorrow. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sian Cotton. Sian Cotton, PhD, is a licensed clinical psychologist and founding director of the UC Center for Integrative Health and Wellness and UC Integrative Medicine. A professor in the departments of Family and Community Medicine and Pediatrics, Dr. Cotton has an active research lab with ongoing studies focused primarily on mindfulness-based interventions and integrative medicine practice-based research. Please welcome Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Karen, for the lovely introduction. Greetings to all. I know many of us have been on Zoom since 8 a.m., so to spend another hour, I appreciate seeing so many friends, faculty, new friends. So pleasure to be here. Thank you to Karen and Kathy and the amazing team for really hosting us this evening. So by way of brief background, for those of you not familiar with the Center for Integrative Health and Wellness, it was founded in 2013 with really a primary goal to help us move and transform a system of primarily disease care to one of wellness care. And by that, I mean, we have an amazing medical care system. We have many of our faculty on the call with us this evening. And in an acute situation, we are in the right country. You are in the right place to be. But unfortunately, we spend about 18% of our national GDP on healthcare and continue to have some of the worst health outcomes. And you might ask why? Well, 80% of many of our chronic conditions are in many ways related to lifestyle. Not all of them, but 80%, that's a lot. But we don't have a healthcare system that focuses on food and exercise and movement and stress reduction and social connectivity. Our physicians aren't paid to spend time with you to talk on those areas. So for example, in the state of Ohio, you can't have your insurance pay for a dietitian visit in general unless you already have type 2 diabetes or if you're in line for a kidney transplant. The whole system is irrational. It frankly doesn't make a lot of sense. So we have about 150 medical schools in the US. About half of them, 75, are now part of this academic consortium. Our partners like Duke and Cleveland Clinic and Harvard and Stanford. And we're just working with our conventional care partners, all of whom do and believe in integrative and lifestyle medicine, but to really work to transform the system so that the healthcare system, the educational system, the community health that we all live and breathe in can really support health and wellness. And so again, because we are at UC Health and UC, we operate on kind of 4 pillars. So I'll give you just a brief snippet. Our clinical program, UC Health Integrative Medicine, I'm going to introduce you in a few minutes here to Dr. G, our new medical director, who is now going to help us really lead that initiative. So I'll let him speak more to it. But integrative medicine and lifestyle medicine is really about weaving in all of these other evidence-based therapies that we know work and that are good for outcomes. And so we don't believe at UC that we should have a separate integrative medicine center. We are building into our Barrett Cancer Center acupuncture, nutrition, exercise physiology, meditation, music therapy starts on Monday. We're building that into the pillars of what we do. We believe at the center that there really shouldn't be integrative and lifestyle medicine. Frankly, this is just good evidence-based medicine. And we have to work to figure out ways to deliver this care to all members of our community, not just those who can afford to pay out of pocket until our insurance companies catch up. So I'll let Dr. G speak more to the clinical program. We have a lot of educational initiatives in the center, and the most exciting thing I want you all to hear is that these are open to the community. So for example, we have coursework, the fundamentals of integrative health and medicine, I see Dr. Nandiel's on the line. She's going to be teaching integrative gut health. She's one of our functional medicine gurus in Cincinnati, and you can now take a course in gut health with the UC Center. In January, UC now offers traditional Chinese medicine taught by one of our acupuncturists. So we have a variety of courses and we are building them. They're both for UC students. We have a new integrative health minor at the university. We're building towards a graduate certificate, but any community member can sign up and take any of these courses. So we're super excited to be able to really offer the community, and much of it will be online in our new virtual format. Some will be in person, but to really offer the community answers about integrative health and medicine from our expert faculty. We have research components. I won't do a lot there, but I would say that we are in the process of hiring the Carrie Hayden Chair for Integrative Oncology Research to help drive the engine of research. And then I'll finish with the community piece, which is just fantastic. And there are so many places. We do workplace mindfulness with people like P&G. Thank you to Elizabeth Pierce, the Cincinnati Museum Center, Kay Geiger and PNC Bank, Cincinnati Public Schools. We work at the Free Store Food Bank. I know Robert Edmiston is with us to deliver mindfulness-based stress reduction to our most at-risk communities. We have an annual symposium where we bring speakers. So we have a lot of touch points in the community. And our goal is really to help people learn the evidence, transform their own lives, really through healthy lifestyle, and then transform the lives of people around them. So I want to be very mindful that I don't take up too much time. I'm delighted that you're all here. I would like to introduce you all to our fabulous new team member, Dr. Mladen Golubic. It's a CH at the end, but you can call him Dr. G if you would like. And I'm going to be a little bit formal for a moment because his CV and his resume and the fact that he's come to Cincinnati requires a bit of a formal introduction. So Dr. G has been at the Cleveland Clinic for the past 3 decades. Just joined us here in January as our medical director for the Center for Integrative Health and Wellness. At the Cleveland Clinic, he was medical director and research director at the Center for Integrative and Lifestyle Medicine. He's a graduate of the University of Zagreb School of Medicine in Croatia, and he earned his PhD doctorate at the same university, doing postdoctoral fellowship at the Max Planck Institute for Biology in the field of immunogenetics. So he's both a PhD scientist for decades and then a physician. So he has this wonderful pairing of science and practice. He's certified by the American Board of Internal Medicine. So he's a primary care doc by training, as well as with the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, which he'll tell you more about. His specialty interests include lifestyle medicine with an emphasis on lifestyle therapies for cardiovascular disease and lifestyle-related types of cancer. He's the author of over 50 peer-reviewed articles, 5 book chapters. He's been a PI or a principal investigator on multiple federal and foundation-funded research studies. And I'll stop by just saying he's an absolute gentleman. He's a family man with 2 small kids, and he's really a scholar. And he's really here with us now as our new leader and our new partner to take the center to the next level and to be the medical director of the clinical program. So I'm going to pass the baton over to my good friend, Dr. G, and introduce Dr. Mladen Golubic to everybody. Dr. G.
Thank you very much, Sean. That's really wonderful that you all found time to be with us tonight. It's a pleasure to see several of you, especially Dr. Nandiel, who is expert in gut health, and we'll be talking about, benefits of fermented foods. What I'll try to do is to use this opportunity of, focusing on Kombucha event as a little door into the benefits of fermented foods, looking at the gut microbiome, and then I'll review what we at our center are doing, not just to enhance the role of foods and other modalities in the gut health, but in overall health. So as we are all aware, the role of fermented foods throughout human society, throughout our history in many different cultures was critical because it ensured the food security during the months where we did not have refrigeration and when we needed to address the issue, what are we going to eat? And food fermentation was really a key factor in that. Now, we know a lot about our genes, human genome. And I remember vividly a conference in Cleveland actually it was conference on integrative oncology when keynote speaker was Dr. Francis Collins. So he just completed, he was one of the key two discoverers or key principal investigators on the Human Genome Project. And so he was asked questions about the role of human genome in cancer treatment. And he said, you know what? The next decade is going to be the decade of human microbiome or human microbial genome. So, and the reason for this is that we have discovered that in the past 700 million years as our ancestors evolved, they actually inherited the world that was populated by microbes. They had like 3.5 billion years to do that. And so throughout this evolution, that symbiotic relationship where both sides are benefiting developed, and we really are composed of, we are more, the microorganisms' genomes than our own genomes. So really the key issue in the health, we know it's related to foods, and fermented foods play an important role. The real challenge here is we have very good data showing that intake of dietary fiber is critical for our health. A variety of chronic diseases are associated with lack of dietary fiber. Dietary fiber is found only in plant foods, whole, unrefined plant foods. Where we have less quality data is in fermented foods. For example, let's just take kombucha or miso or tempeh. There is a lack of randomized clinical trials showing the benefits. There are plenty of benefits from thousands of years of experience, human experience, plus a lot of publications on in vitro studies in test tube, which is also important evidence. And even in animal models, there are benefits. So clearly this opens an enormous field where we could contribute. And if you read those publications, they usually say, in the light of compelling evidence for in vitro, meaning test tube data, we suggest that high quality randomized clinical trials should be conducted in order to demonstrate the benefits in humans. What is exciting is that we clearly in our center are implementing, and Dr. Cotton, Sean, has mentioned the role of dietitian in, for example, care for cancer patients. It's important for any other patient. So we have dietitians who can work with our patients and ensure that they obtain sufficient high quality nutrition for their chronic disease that they have. But now what is getting so exciting for us in the field of integrative health is that we are discovering that there is something that exists that is called microbiome gut-brain axis. So we know that we have our second brain in the gut, and gut communicates with our brain. So that was quite well established, and we know the neuronal pathways and we know the hormonal pathways. But now the new wrinkle in that story that is so exciting is that the microbes that inhabit our gut are mediators in that communication. And just to demonstrate how spectacular those things are, there was a recent study with a model of Parkinson's disease in mice who were treated with acupuncture. Okay, so these are mice, these are not humans. So there were 2 points that were treated, and there was the control, and they did really sophisticated basic science analysis showing how acupuncture impacts the gut flora, meaning the microbes that are there, and changes it into very favorable ecosystem of these microbes, and that influences what's happening in the brain, especially the neurons that are important in Parkinson's disease. So clearly we are the frontier of finally understanding how those age-tested modalities are critical for the health of us humans, not just in the test tube or in rodents. So with this, I want to kind of review for you the modalities that are available. We now know that chronic stress plays a significant role in our well-being, in our health. Yeah, it's connected to a variety of conditions, not just those that are obvious like anxiety and depression, but it's related to perception of pain. It's related to cardiovascular health. It's related to prognosis and survival from different types of cancer. And there are good data, growing amount of data showing that chronic stress impacts the quality of microbes in our gut. Again, opportunity for practices that can impact these stress pathways. So focusing on self-care through good food choices, and as I mentioned, what we really have solid evidence is the role of dietary fiber, meaning the unrefined, unprocessed plant foods that serve as a source of metabolism for those gut bacteria and other microorganisms. But beyond diet, it is how we take care of ourselves when it comes to stress relief. We, for our patients, have opportunity. We offer them yoga practice. Now it's virtual. Clearly, when COVID subsides and we can go in person, that will be another level. We have, besides yoga, Tai Chi practices. Again, age-tested methods that now we kind of understand the mechanisms, how they help our health. We have mindfulness practices. We have serious for cancer survivors. We have serious for those who have neurological conditions. We are starting music therapy, both for a variety of patients with a variety of symptoms. So there is a spectrum of things that we can help our patients that really go transcend. They go beyond just self-care. Those are the practices that anybody can learn, and we can help you in that process. So I will stop here. I do not want to go over the time. We will have plenty of time, I hope, for question and answer period. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to present, to give you a short snippet of what we do clinical-wise on our center. Besides individual consultations that are focused on lifestyle choices for a variety of conditions, we have those modalities that go from acupuncture, massage therapy, mindfulness, music therapy, and yoga and Tai Chi that I mentioned. So I'll be very happy to answer those questions. So thank you for the opportunity to present. Thank you, the Fab Ferments, for sharing with us their product, all the people who were involved in preparation, and special thanks to Dolores who delivered the package and the kombucha to my doorsteps. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Golubic. We are so grateful that you're here from Cleveland Clinic. We're now going to begin the tasting portion of our event. Most of you have received your kombucha growler, provided by, as Dr. Golubic mentioned, from our friends at Fab Ferments. There were two options for tonight's tasting. The first is Soul Shaker. That's what I have here and have been sipping on the whole time. It's made with raw, unfiltered kombucha tea, which is that the tea itself is comprised of filtered water, tea, cane sugar, and live active cultures. Alongside the kombucha tea is red Hawaiian turmeric root, ginger root, and pineapple. The other option that you had to choose from was pink lemon rosemary. Besides the raw, unfiltered kombucha tea, it also contains lemon, rosemary, and a touch of beet for that pink color. As you sip and enjoy your kombucha of choice, we're excited to share with you some information on the history and the benefits of kombucha. You may be wondering, what is kombucha? Well, kombucha is a naturally fermented, sour, effervescent tonic thought to have originated in China, but has roots all over the world. Traditionally, kombucha is sweetened black tea cultured with a mother, also known as a SCOBY. This is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. The mother ferments the sweet tea and reproduces itself, creating a baby, which can be split and shared. Some of you may be familiar with friendship bread. I haven't seen that for a while, but it's the same kind of concept. Raw cultured foods can support the body in many different ways, as Dr. Golubic already pointed out. As he mentioned, additionally, they can aid with digestion, immune system support, metabolism, the nervous system, intestinal flora, and mental health. So Dr. Golubic, which flavor did you try?
I went with Soul Shaker, and I'm very pleased that I did that. I'll be honest. I worked hand in hand for more than 2 decades with executive chef at the Cleveland Clinic, Mr. Perko, Jim Perko, and he was very big fan of kombucha, and so he would often bring this and try this. And honestly, I thought this is not going to be a habit-forming adventure for me with kombucha. Now, what I like about this one, and I share this with Sean, the addition of ginger and pineapple was really wonderful. I think it kind of adds richness of flavor. And so, yes, I liked it. So, I mean, there is the world of discoveries. I would like to also try the other one. So, to see how rosemary goes.
We can probably make that happen for you.
Yes, yeah, that's my long answer. Yes, it's wonderful. Thank you, Fab.
Well, as Dr. Golubic mentioned, tonight's kombucha was provided by our friends at Fab Ferments. Fab Ferments' mission is to handcraft delicious and totally raw cultured foods the traditional way. They strive to preserve the art of fermentation through ancient preservation techniques. Fab Ferments chooses ingredients with care by working with organic farmers and enhances each product with healing vibrations from music, art, and love. Not only does Fab Ferments offer kombucha, but they also have a full product line available, including organic sauerkraut, kimchi, beet kvass, hot pepper sauce, and more. They make a wonderful probiotic condiment and or an ingredient mixed in with homemade salad dressings, marinades, smoothies, dips, and this is a happy hour. It is a cocktail mixer. You all may not realize that, but both flavors actually go really good when you add a little splash of Prosecco, or maybe your preference is gin or vodka, but I'll just point that out. It happens to make a pretty good mixer. Mine is NA until 7 o'clock. Dr. Cotton, what flavor did you try?
So it's this pink lemon rosemary. And can I just say these are gorgeous bottles, and these messages, like, that's my favorite thing. I mean, healthy living, laugh, live. I love the bottles. I have to be honest, I am also not a big kombucha fan. So I put it in this beautiful glass that I usually drink another pink, rosé out of. And I thought if I had it in this, and frankly, I wouldn't say I love it, Karen and group, but it's actually quite lovely. And the more I hear about the benefits, so some of the ones I've had have not been lovely. This is actually kind of lovely, if I'm being honest. So that's my take on it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cotton. You can learn more about Fab Ferments at their website, which is fabferments.com, or you can visit their kombucha tap room and store at 611 Shepherd Drive, Unit 16 in Cincinnati, Ohio. They also offer pre-order, pickup, and home delivery. In your swag bag, there is some information from Fab Ferments, some collateral that's in your bag that also highlights what I just told you. So we will proceed with questions and answers. I want to thank everyone for participating and to Fab Ferments for providing the kombucha for tonight. I'd now like to take time to open the floor for any questions you all might have for both Dr. Cotton or Dr. Golubic. Please either share your question in the chat or raise your hand to ask your question, and we will certainly call on you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. I'm Allison Brew-Cutter. I'm with the UC Foundation. You may or may not be able to see me, but you should be able to hear me. We already have some questions in the chat. So the very first question, and this one's probably for you, Dr. G. How much should one drink to enjoy the health benefits of kombucha?
That's a good question, because whenever you deal with any food in the sense of medicinal prescription, you want to know the dose and frequency and duration. What I read, everybody agrees that 4 ounces a day is absolutely safe and it could have benefits. Probably more than that. The content of alcohol varies. It could be from 0.7 to 1.3%. It all depends in which conditions, temperature, duration, which kind of scobic culture was used. So for sure, 4 ounces, that's the number that I have found in most recent reviews. I don't, see why double of this would be an issue if you really like to drink it. I hope that answered the question. Maybe Dr. Nandial has some other information, some other data that I'm not familiar with.
I'll weigh in. I love Fab Ferments. We live very close to it. And so I'll drop by. The growlers are actually recyclable, so you can take that back and get a couple dollars off your refill. You can try out different flavors. They even have, when the bar was operational, you can get a slider of different flavors of kombucha and really do your own taste testing. So it's a fun place. When COVID lifts, we should be able to enjoy again. What I usually tell people, again, it's really dependent on their taste preferences, but I think about it not so much as a drink as much as a shot, taking a medicinal, throw back a shot kind of every now and then. And so I think that there's probably some value even to that small amount. Because I don't know, I don't feel too great when I have more than about 4 ounces. So there's, again, I think it may depend on the variety and depend on what it's actually growing. I believe it's mostly it's not Saccharomyces. It may be this Cerevisiae. Isn't that the most common bacteria? That's
there are several Saccharomyces species. I'm sure people at Fab Ferments, they probably know exactly the profile of their culture in order to do it. But there is only one study that was actually a doctoral thesis that was done in India, looking at 24 patients with diabetes. And so in that study, they used 60 milliliters, which is 2 ounces. And this was over a couple of months. And so they see the benefits for reducing the blood sugar and blood pressure. But as I said, we don't have really randomized clinical trials that we can say, how much to take. But I think this analogy, taking it as a shot, 2 to 4 ounces, that's probably the range. If you like it, of course. There are many other fermented foods which we didn't talk about. Okay, this was very convenient because it's a liquid. But tempeh, miso, sauerkraut, kimchi. I mean, those are foods that should be widely prescribed as medicinal.
Wonderful. We have another question in the chat. First, they wanted to say, great job, team. This is awesome. They love it. And their question is, does kombucha have caffeine in it since it is made with black tea?
I don't know exactly how much it is, but yeah, tea catechins, green and black tea has, a cup of green or black tea has about 14 milligrams of caffeine. Clearly, it gets diluted with the process of fermentation. I do not know exactly. It does have it. I don't know how much it has. Probably has less than 40, what normally a cup of green or black tea has. These are good questions.
These are great questions, and we have many more. What specifically is it about fermentation that promotes a healthy gut and digestive system?
It's a really wonderful question. So we know two major things. One is that the foods that we consume, many foods, primarily those of plant origin, contain fiber which our enzymatic machinery cannot digest. And so throughout evolution, we developed that cooperation with microbes, not just bacteria, but fungi and some viruses that live within bacteria. And they take the step forward, those leftovers that our enzymatic machinery couldn't digest, then that's their food. And in the process, they generate a variety of beneficial compounds, especially those short-chain fatty acids that actually the main source of our cells that line the gut comes from those fatty acids. So if we feed our gut bacteria well, we feed our lining in the gut very well. We know that the bigger diversity in the gut we have, the more species we have, the healthier we will be. And in fact, there is a direct correlation. The more microbial species you have, the less abdominal fat you have. So direct correlation with obesity. Now, when it comes to fermented foods, we are kind of step ahead of this, meaning in the sense that we are ingesting the foods that already the microbes have addressed and metabolized, and in the process released a variety of nutrients. So this, what you taste in kombucha, is from the acetic acid producing bacteria that live symbiotically with those yeast, yeah? And that's why it's, acidic, because that's what bacteria do. It's not what we do. And there are data that show that some of these bacteria, they do survive the very hostile environment in our stomach with very low pH, because those bacteria can live very well in acidic environment, meaning because there is acid in there. Yeah? And so they can reach and repopulate the gut. The key question is, how many species do you need to repopulate the gut and make it healthy if it's unhealthy or if it's not optimal? And the answer is the more, the better. In many experiments in humans as well as in animals, when you transfer the whole genome from healthy individual to the diseased one, you see the benefits. We still didn't narrow it down to 20 or 30 or 40 different microbes. So the idea is, the more diverse you are in your diet, the more diverse fermented foods you try, from miso and tempeh and sauerkraut and kimchi and kombucha and whatever you like, the more likely you are that you will cover all those microbes that we know are beneficial. And I'm sorry, I tend to lecture and go over time, but
no, I think everyone here on the call can agree that they love hearing your answers. So do not ever feel like you need to cut your answers or anything like that.
Thank you. I usually like to start. It was first darkness, and then God created universe, and that's how everything came.
Wonderful. And we have even more questions. Thank you, everyone, for putting them in the chat. This is wonderful. So the next question we have, does kombucha have any effect on one's bones? Is it safe to drink for people with osteoporosis?
Unfortunately, I don't know. I even cannot speculate. The only speculation that I could say is that if you look at the chemical composition of kombucha, you find a variety of antioxidant, flavonoids. T-catechins are known to be anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. And we know that inflammation oxidation plays a role in development of osteoporosis. There are even some amino acids like lysine that are enriched in kombucha. There are microminerals from, zinc and copper that we know could be important in bone health. So I believe it's not going to harm in any way. it very likely will not interfere with any medication that you might be taking for osteoporosis. But that's where my limits in knowledge end. I mean, that's what I need, those limits. I don't know if Dr. Nandial knows something specific about osteoporosis and kombucha. I do not know.
Well, I would say, in addition to what all you've shared, Dr. Golubic, we know that the bacteria make certain nutrients for us that we then consume. They even make some hormones that we need. And so there may be a connection there with bone health, as well as other hormonal pathways. But I think the whole idea of healing the gut, as you mentioned earlier, keeping the gut intact is the best strategy for healthy bones. So this is where if we don't have optimal levels of probiotics and the functioning lining of the gut, we're going to be more at risk for many of these chronic conditions such as osteoporosis.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
Wonderful, thank you. And I would like to share with all of you, some of these questions are really great questions for Fab Ferments as well. So what we're gonna do is with these questions, we are gonna share them with them as well and see if they have any insights or answers for all of you, so that way we can share what Fab Ferments thinks as well. Before we move on to the next question, I did want to do a shout out to those of you putting recipes and tidbits for how to process kombucha that are so fun. So we have one that says that they made a kimchi, I think I'm saying that right, fried rice with cauliflower rice last night, and they actually shared the recipe. That sounds delicious and another great way to get some of that fermentation. And then we had someone else say that they find drinking kombucha with water helps to maintain hydration, especially for those who do not generally feel thirst or enjoy drinking water. So please keep sharing these great tidbits in the chat, and as I see them, I'll share them. But the next question we have is, does yogurt also count as a fermented food?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yes, it has a variety of bacteria, several species that, you know, we all have heard, lactobacillus and acidophilus, etc. Yeah, that's also fermented food. Sourdough bread is also fermented food. I just wanted to comment on this, sharing the recipes. This is exactly what the shared medical appointment or group visit with patients does. Often it's so much more powerful when members of the group share their best experiences. It has such a deep impact on other members of the group, far deeper than I can tell you than us medical professionals can suggest. You know, we can suggest certain things, but when it comes from your peers, it's really wonderful. So I think it really shows the dynamic. So thank you for sharing those, and please, you know, jump in. I'm sure that there are many of you who are probably much more knowledgeable about that than I am. So yes, next question.
Awesome. All right, next question. Being involved in organic farming, I know there's a huge difference between the products that are certified as organic. Is there a difference among the gut benefiting qualities among what is being labeled kombucha?
I will speak about organic versus non-organic because I think these data are fairly clear, and you know, I want to express my gratefulness to organic farmers who supplied all those ingredients for this kombucha that we are drinking now. If you compare organic versus non-organically raised, and usually they looked at some berries or you know, broccoli and such things, you find appreciable differences. And what we have discovered, not us at our center, but we as scientists and medical professionals, we discovered that when plants are not sprayed with pesticides, when they need to develop their own mechanisms to defend against fungi or bacteria or insects or even animals that want to eat them, they have those mechanisms for self-defense. And many of those mechanisms are actually the ones that our cells are using for protecting them from a variety of insults. So if you, for example, look at vegetable soup made from organic vegetables versus vegetable soup made from non-organic vegetables, you can find like 6-fold higher content of salicylic acid. Yeah, we all know about aspirin, acetyl salicylic acid. Salicylic acid is precursor of that. Has tremendous benefits for us, but it's the key protector of plants against their pathogens. So clearly, having opportunity to grow plants in a natural environment, in a rich soil, that's another story. I mean, that's, you know, in kombucha, we are talking here about bacteria and fungi, you know, Saccharomyces yeast working together. But, you know, what's going underground, it's even far more fascinating and powerful. So if you have good soil, good soil microbiome, then you get healthy plant, and this plant actually impacts our health. So yes, whenever possible, we should aim for organic. And I see Robert here from Turner Farm, which is, you know, our premier organic farm in the state of Ohio and beyond. So anything that we can do to shift our food production to organic foods that stimulate our health is beneficial.
Wonderful. The next question, and this might be a question for people to put their answers in the chat or to tell us right now via video, but what is the most popular flavor? And I'm assuming they mean tonight, which flavor seems to be really popular. I also wanted to share in regards to what might be the most popular kombucha flavor out there. Fab Ferment does rotate seasonally the flavors that they do. So there's always an opportunity to go to Fab Ferment and try out new flavors of kombucha. So if you want to post which one you had, and if you love it in the chat, I've seen a couple love comments for Soul Shaker. So if anyone else would like to as well, we'd love that. And we'll continue the questions on our end. So another question is, I had issues with acid reflux and tender throat tissue from radiation treatment from a cancer treatment. So is there another source for fermented foods that would not have these side effects?
I don't know how to answer that question. There are many factors that go beyond the food that we eat, the type of food. It's the way, when we eat and how we eat. Do we chew well? Do we eat in a condition where we're under a lot of stress, or we have managed that stress? That all impacts, has profound impact on acid reflux. So I would really need to know a little bit more about that, but I cannot tell you whether one fermented food would be better than the other. Clearly, one would have to experiment and find out, but it goes beyond that. And this brings me to the fact that it's very difficult to study such things. If you have the same culture and you ferment it in one environment versus another, and you have different temperature and different duration, you get different composition of compounds. And that is difficult in standardizing and comparing the experiments from, you know, in Korea and here. So, yeah, I do not know. Maybe somebody else knows.
I was about to say, Dr. Daniel, do you have any thoughts on that?
I would just echo Dr. Golubic. I mean, I think it's going to be a sort of a trial and error. It's going to be, you know, whatever is more soothing to the individual. I'd also want to bounce back, if I could just step back a little bit to the question about the organic versus non-organic. I've just been fascinated with the role that we don't even know how to measure in terms of human health impact of pesticides. But we know that they're fairly ubiquitous in non-organic foods, and they are pesticides. They kill good bacteria too. So when we're consuming foods that have those pesticide residues, the potential hazard to our own microbiome is not insignificant. And so I'll just leave that there. So that's just another reason to eat organic, I think. And to wash off our vegetables as much as possible. A shout out to the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, that really does some nice work around what's conventionally not too heavily ridden with pesticides. And then there's a list called the Dirty Dozen that tends to be more heavily pesticide ridden. And those are the ones that you definitely want to have organic. If you're looking to economize, it may be all right to use the Clean 15 that are less pesticides. So
good. And Robert has a question. I see his hand up.
Apologize. You all have already addressed it. I had done that previously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, thank you for everything. It's very informative. Thank you so much for doing this evening.
Thank you, Robert.
I just want to comment about the reflux. In my experience, and I'm Dr. Hamrick, I'm a geriatrician. In my experience, refined carbohydrates tend to be the worst in causing reflux. So avoid your white spaghetti and your white rice and bread, or eat those in very small quantities, and then you will reduce your reflux more than anything else you can do. And oftentimes people think it's the spicy spaghetti sauce when it's actually the spaghetti themselves that are doing it.
I agree, Dr. Hamrick. Thank you. If it's white, don't bite. Okay.
What a wonderful limerick to live by.
Oh, except white navy beans and cannellini beans. Okay.
Perfect.
Everything
And
else, if it's white, don't bite. And
I
white
love
asparagus.
how this question has become a community answer. That's so fabulous to see as a group. And I hope that gave some insight to the individual who asked that question. We are getting close to the end of our Q&A portion, so I think we probably have time for 2 more questions. If you had a question in the chat and it was not answered, do not fret. We will be sharing those questions with Dr. G and Dr. Cotton directly, and any answers they provide, we will share out post-event with the recording. So why don't we do, how do we know if our gut biome is functioning properly?
That is a really good question, in the sense that how do you define healthy gut microbiome? So we have some ideas. We know when we take healthy volunteers, what's their profile of their species, and we know that within 3 or 4 days of changing the diet, you change the composition of gut bacteria. There are certainly tests, and I think Dr. Nadial can talk more about this, that are looking into that. The only uncertainty is, what do you do about when you know that result? You know, how do you enhance certain groups of species that are there? Because this is the whole ecosystem. You just cannot now introduce 1 or 2 or 3 species and think that you will fix the problem. The safest thing, and the answer that I get to this question when I talk to experts, especially those who work at the National Center for Microbiome Research at UC Davis, Rob Knight is the person with whom I interacted the most, and you know, who runs those tests for evaluating microbiome and how certain interventions do that. He said there are 2 major pathways how you can really ensure that your gut microbiome is healthy, or how to protect it. You protect it by not using antibiotics. That's like a big thing, unless it's necessary. Of course, if you have an infection and so on, you use antibiotics, but we use them very liberally. Yeah. And the other way how to enhance and strengthen your gut microbiome and enrich it, diversify it, is dietary fiber. Those are those beans, those are those 100% whole grains, variety of vegetables and fruits. And that's the foods that will ensure, if you eat those, you will ensure that your microbiome is rich, diverse, and health promoting.
Wonderful. Dr. Ningel, do you have any feedback on that as well?
Well, thanks for letting me step up to the plate. I would say that most people know whether or not their gut feels like it's in good shape. And so I encourage folks to, trust their gut. The hardest folks for me to work with is folks whose gut feels just fine. They're pooping every day. They have no complaints. Those are the ones that it's a little harder to get them to buy into the importance of their food choices and, to really work on protecting their gut microbiome. But I think that if there's chronic conditions, chronic health concerns, or if there's any symptomatology that's just really not feeling great, then we probably need to spend some time thinking about your gut health. Yes, we could do some very intricate tests, checking for the gut composition of bacteria through stool testing. It's not necessary. I do that. I have done that in folks with really just intractable symptoms, so that we can get an idea whether or not there are some parasites or there's an overgrowth of fungi or something that we could maybe address in a more targeted fashion. But for the most part, I think that, leaning on, what's working and what's not working, having, really good habits of taking the trash out every day and a couple of times a day. I don't know how much detail we get into before dinner if some of you eat, so a little cautious there. But we dumpster dive. We really talk about that. That's where the evidence is really in how well you eliminate. I think that's a big part of it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for pitching in.
Perfect. And now one last question. How does this interact with probiotics?
Well, in the big scheme of things, and I'll be very brief here. So there is something that we call prebiotics. So this is the food for bacteria. And probiotics are already foods that are being digested, that are impacted metabolically by different bacteria. So as I mentioned, the best is that you get prebiotics and you let your internal system of microbes decide which ones to expand, which ones to not. And that's the quality of the food that we talk about, unrefined plant foods. And then probiotics come in all these fermented foods. I mean, you got probiotics here, yeah. You get there are microbes here and there are metabolites that we are consuming here. And we know that some of them can survive and populate. So you just need to do it on a regular basis.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Karen, I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your thoughtful questions, and to Dr. Golubic for taking the time to join us for a kombucha tasting and conversation about the Center for Integrative Health and Wellness. And thank you to Sian for bringing this amazing center to having the vision and bringing the center to the community of Cincinnati. We are very grateful for you. Before we close our program, though, we wanted to mention some of the items that you would have received in your kombucha, with your kombucha growler. We have provided for you a small white ceramic pot with a bag of herbs to plant your very own container garden, and some Grateful Gram cookies. The developer of Grateful Grams, Rachel DeRoche, is actually on our call today, so shout out to Rachel for that donation for the swag bags. There's also a copy of Ohio Edible Valley magazine. Thank you to Amy Paul. I see her on the call as well. And information sheets about the center and how to become a friend of the center, which we will talk about in just a moment. The UC Center for Integrative Health and Wellness works to be our region's transformational leader in moving healthcare from disease management to proactive whole person wellness. The center advances its work through roles as educators, researchers, and clinicians. Some examples of what we do are offer courses in integrative health and wellness for students, as well as engage in the community with wellness classes at Turner Farms Teaching Kitchen. Thank you, Robert Edmiston. and offering a mindfulness-based stress reduction program at the Free Store Food Bank, the Breathing Room, and directly, as Sean mentioned, in the workplace with some of Cincinnati's largest employers. We also do research and investigate mind, body, and food as medicine interventions and offer clinical services across UC Health, such as biofeedback and health psychology, movement-based therapies such as Tai Chi and yoga, and so much more. A wonderful way to support the mission of the center is to consider joining me as a friend of the center. As a friend of the center, you will forge an in-depth relationship with the center and join the grassroots efforts to make access to integrative medicine for all a reality. Gifts of any amount can qualify you to become a friend of the center, whether you choose to give it the connected, wellness, healing, mindfulness, or serenity levels. To learn more about our programs and services, you can sign up for our quarterly e-newsletter at med.uc.edu/integrative. I think we're going to put up a slide on that because that's a mouthful to say and a mouthful to remember. There it is. I think Allison's going to share that now. Thank you. If you'd like to connect with the center directly, you can email us at that second email address, ucihw@uc.edu. And if you're interested in becoming a friend of the center, please reach out to Dolores Dodson, also on this call, at dolores.dodson@uc.edu. We also hope you can join us again for our next Lifestyle Medicine and Wellness Series event. It's a Meet the Author at the Mercantile Library on June 3rd at 6 p.m. We'll be featuring another friend of the center and advisory board member and his book, Walking the Thames. In his book, Buck walks the 184-mile length of the river along the Thames path with 4 companions. Despite some of his hardships along the trail, he discovers that his joy for flowing water is one of his most meaningful pleasures. This event will be available to attend in person, which is, by the way, going to be the reopening of the Mercantile Library. This will be their first in-person event since COVID, or virtually, if you're more comfortable with that. We can make that available as well. So once again, thank you so much for your support of the Center for Integrative Health and Wellness, and for everyone in joining us today, and for the amazing team, Allison and Dolores, for being our behind-the-scenes tech support and making this happen. Thank you so much. Hope to see you in June.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you all. Be well. Lovely
Yeah.
to see people. We'll see you next time.
Stay well. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Nandial, for stepping in.